Welcome back. Hope you're doing great. Welcome to our day 2 session. So if you haven't watched the day 1 session, I dropped the link in the description box. So just click that and watch the day 1 so that you can continue with us. So in the day 2, so day 1, what we have done is we just validated the user who's trying to authenticate it by using their Gmail. So far we've done that, and today we are going to create this navigation menu along with this nice animated uh, menu bar, and we are going to trigger the sign out and all the functionalities along with a nice login screen. Okay, so this is the task we are going to do today. So without wasting the time, so let's get started. So let me stop the server. Let me open the VS Code. So let's start our own project which we created in the previous session. So this is what so far we done. So let's start the server yarn dev, and let's start our client app to yarn client. Oops, sorry, yarn start. So now this is what we get so far. So here we are simply getting the home screen because we already logged in, and you can see that we are getting the token. So if I copy this token, copy, where is my Postman app? Okay, so let's send this to desktop too. Cool. So here we're having the headers. So let me replace this key. So this is the place where we are so far we are pasting that token and everything. Send it. Need to update. Okay, so what exactly happening here? Because in our server code, if you have a look at it, if we are trying to sign in with the same user, it will performs two different actions. Over here, when the user try to log in, if that user doesn't exist in our database, that will create as a new user. If the user is already exists in our database, that is saying need to update. Okay, it's because we have to update the user authenticated time. So let's open our MongoDB sign in. And if you look at here, use your Gmail account to log in. So let me log in. It's taking a while. Okay, so let me go to the collections. So over the collections, you can see that we're having the users table, and we already having that email, logged in email. So I'm trying to log in with the same email. So that's the reason it's showing. So user needs to be updated. So it's giving this timestamp updated and created. So what we are going to do is we are going to update this authenticated time. So this is the timestamp which is maintaining the users logged in sessions and everything. So that is what we are going to update now. So to do that, what you have to do is go back to your Visual Studio Code, and instead of simply returning this, need to update just like the same way what we did over here, creating new user data. Just like that same way, we are going to create a new function where we can update that information. Okay, so let's go ahead and update that user data. So what you have to do is let's create a new function, const update new user data equals, that is also going to be an asynchronous function, and we are going to create an arrow6 function, async arrow6 function. So just like the same way, from this function, what are the things we need to send? We need to send the decode value, because that's the variable where we are having our decrypted token. We need to send that one, and we need to send the request and the response as well, so that we can return the value from this function itself. So decode value, comma, request, comma, response. So these are the parameters for this function. So now what I need to do is I need to fetch the user in, because this user is already inside our database. So we have to get that user information. To get that user information, what is that? MongoDB is providing you a powerful function called find one and update. So if you search for find one update MongoDB, so you can see that function in their official documentation itself. So please go through their official documentation so that you can understand what are the requirements, what are the properties of the function, how to send those properties, and how to update the values and everything. So please go through this documentation. Okay, so now let me get back to the code. Go over here. So here what we are going to do is the filter, how I'm going to get the data, that's the filter. So const filter, that's a variable name I'm creating, equals user ID. So user ID is the object name which is coming from your MongoDB collection, this user ID. So don't misspell it, copy it, and better paste it over here. So try to get the value by using the user ID. From where we are getting the value from our decode value. In the decode value also we are having the same user ID. Try to get that same value, and const options. So these are the options, extra support options. You can see here, if you go back to these functions, you can see that it's having some functions over here. You can see that this is upsert. We can use it through. So what this upsert is exactly doing, it creates a new document if there is no matches found. If there is any matches over there, it will returns that particular single document. That's the reason we are going to using this upsert method. Okay, so upsert property. So upsert. Okay, so make sure that you're spelling it correctly using this property name. So copy it and paste it over here. So upsert is going to be, it's a boolean value, so that should be true. And I'm going to use the one more property called new, that is also going to be true. Okay, so both are now options are done. Then what we have to do is I have to use the try and catch. So try, and we have to use the catch block immediately after this. Catch error. In case if there is any runtime error or anything, we have to handle it. So const result, so that will returns a promise. So I'm going to get that as a result object. Result, await, fetch the detail. Where we are going to fetch, we are going to fetch the details from the users table in our database. So user, that's a module which we imported from where, the module which we created over here, the model which we created. From that user model, we are going to fetch the detail by using what? Find one and update. So it's having, there are lots of functions, find one and delete, remove, update. Later we are going to use these functionalities to update and delete and everything. In this case, we are going to find one and we are going to update the value inside it. So this function takes a certain parameters like filter, update value, queries, functions, and everything. Lots of callback. Okay, there are lots of functions in it. So inside this, what we are going to do is first you have to supply the filter which we already having filter, and then you have to supply the value which you are going to update. In this case, I'm going to update the user authentication time. If you have a look at it in our data, you can see that I'm not going to update the entire detail. I'm just going to update the user authenticated time. This is the only thing I need to update. Okay, so I'm going to update that auth time. So it's better to copy the value from here, copy it and paste it. So what time you should not, we are not supposed to give the time by using the date function or time function, which is getting the values from the current system date or time. We are not supposed to get that. So once the token is initiated, in that token itself, you will have the authenticated time. So we need to just get that value and we have to update it. So decode value dot the same value auth time. So from the token, we are getting it. Then what are the options we prefer to do? So the options which we created over here, option. Okay, so let me change it the names because that's options. we're having two or different options. That's the reason. Okay, I'm just keeping it reasonable. So now the value will get updated. Once it gets updated, we have to send the response back. So response.status. Okay, if the status code is 200, that means the successful. The status, if the value gets successfully updated, send that user information, the value what you are getting from the user result. This is a temporary object which is created inside this function, so don't get confused with this user and this user. So I'm just keeping the same name to make it clear so that I will not get confused. That's the reason I'm using the same name. So user, and we will get the updated single document in this object, and we are sending it back over here. So now let's see, if you go to your data, let's see here 660 last, you can see here 5660, and let me open the Postman and let's try one more time. Still we are getting the same. Why? Yes, it's because we haven't called this function, so that's the reason. It's my bad. So let's go here. So what we have to do is, this is the place it's returning that information. So all you have to do, so we don't need to return anything because we already have the return statement inside this functions itself. So we don't have to do anything else. So I missed one more thing. That is, in case if there is any error is happening, I just need to send that error. So that let me copy the same error value from that above function from here. So I'll copy the same value and I paste it over here. If that any internal server error, send the success as not false. Oops, my bad. Here false. Send the success message is false, and we send the error message. What is the error object you are getting back? So I have to copy this function and I have to call this function right over here. Paste it and send all those value in order. First you have to send the decode value, then you have to send the request, then you have to send the response object. Okay, so these are the values. Let me save the server and let's verify is there any mistakes or not in the server. So far there is no mistakes in our server. Let's go back and hit the send button again. So now you can see that we are getting the values and our authenticated time, it's getting the same value 165658560. How to make sure whether our value is getting updated or not? 165 is 58. Refresh it. Okay, so we are getting the, actually the value is returning back, but I'm not sure whether our value is getting updated or not. To make it sure, so instead of this value, what I'm going to do is I'm going to supply a string called updated. Save the changes. So if everything is working fine, instead of this value in the Postman over here, we should get updated string. Hit the send and you can see that the values it's getting updated. Now instead of the time string, we are getting the updated. That means our value and the code what we written, it's working perfectly. So let me revert the changes. So now we are getting the original authenticated time as a string and we are sending it. And if I click send again, now you can see that we are getting the time string. Okay, so we successfully getting our user information. So what we have done so far is, if you supply the key, that the token value through this API key, that will go and verify our database and it will decode that token and it will fetch that user information. If it is available, it will fetch it. If it is not available, it creates a new user. So this is what happening so far. So now what we have to do is we have to create an interactive page to do all these actions, and we are not supposed to print our token value over here like this. So that's what we are going to do next. Okay, so this is the home page. So we have to customize our home page. So let's go back to our home page over here. So let's go back to our home screen. Where is that home screen? So let me go to the client and inside the components folder, here it is, home.jsx. So far it's just displaying the home as a text. So what we have to do is we just have to display the value as instead of simply displaying as a text, we have to display the complete navigation bar. So let me check the person who commented so far. So thank you, this project looks awesome. So I really appreciate it. It really looks awesome too. Yeah, thank you. Then so one of the student, or one of the viewer, he's asking about previous project question. So I'll help you out. So let me finish this session successfully. I will get back to you immediately. Sure. Okay, so now what you have to do is, so let's go here and look at it. So first we have to customize the screen. So let me close this console and go back here. So in this division, so first what we have to do is add a class name. So for this, I already configured the Tailwind config.js, and you can copy this code from, I already pasted this file, specific file code in the my GitHub, and I provided a link in the description so that you can use that link to copy this code. And I already provided the assets folder where you can download the assets. So where you can download this assets folder. So you I already shared the link. So click that link and download this assets folder. So let me bring this assets folder into our Visual Studio Code. Let me bring it in just a moment. Where it is, so I have to bring this specific folder. You have to copy that assets folder inside your source folder. That should be inside your source folder, inside this folder. So let me bring this. Come on. Where is that file? This making me, yeah, now we copied that assets folder. So here we go. So you can copy the Tailwind configuration CSS and these assets folder. So this folder is containing an index file, which is nothing but which is exporting our video. Later, if you want to export any other videos or anything, you can export it in this way, so that you don't have to import a multiple statement. And in the same way, inside that image folder also, you will have an index page, which is exporting the images. In future, if you're adding multiple images inside it, you just go back to your index and just import it, and you can use that name just like in the same way. Okay, so now what we have to do is we have to get back to our home screen, home component. Inside this home component, all you have to do is first I need to make sure that this home component is taking the entire screen. So I have to make sure that. So all I have to, so let's go back to our app.js. Let's app.js. I think it's using this for time being. It's using the width, height, and everything. So let me change. We have to change, make a few changes over there. Okay, so inside that, the division. So this over in that example. So what we are using is we are using a framer motion animation. So for animation purpose, so what we have to do is we have to bring, let's import one more, let's open one more terminal, and we have to install a package called framer motion. The framer motion is really helps you to do a creative animation, and simple and very easy and very user friendly for the animation purposes. Okay, so just go ahead and install that package, framer motion. If you haven't heard about this term, open your browser and search about framer motion. So you can find their official web page. So open their official web page And you can see that there are lots of examples and everything. Just go through the examples and they give you the way how you have to use and how you have to customize it, everything. You can find everything over here. Okay, so just take your time and go through that. So let me add that framer motion, yarn add framer motion. So we have to install one more package called Axios, because we are getting the data by using this API. We need to use this API in our front end. So that's the reason we need to import one more package called yarn add Axios. So install that one more package, yarn add Axios. So we installed all the necessary packages so far. So that's done. So what I have to do is, so our animation need to be presented at every time. Once the page it's loaded, and it should present that animation. It should not trigger the animation every single time whenever I'm coming back. It should run only once by the time when the web page is completely getting loaded. Okay, so for that reason I have to import one package. So right after over here, I'm just importing a package, import from framer motion. So from the framer motion, I'm just going to insert a package called animate presence. Okay, so because this class will helps you to maintain all the motion animations and everything, and you can do some customizations also. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap the entire component code inside the animate presence, so that I don't have to use this class every single time whenever I'm using the motion. So I'm wrapping the entire component. Save the changes. Just a moment. Format on save. I think I enabled that file. Yeah, format on, it's everything already enabled. Come on, this keyboard shortcuts entirely different. Command palette, shift command P, shift command format the document with configure default formatter code. Okay, shift command P. It's up and running only, but I don't know why whenever I'm saving the document it's not formatting. Okay, so let's go back to the app of app.js. So we added that animate on presence and exit. So you can see here exit before enter. So this is the method which helps you to exit the complete animation. So even if your animation it's not completed properly, so that means that once the data is loaded, it waits for the animation completely. It waits for the animation needs to be completed. So that's the reason we are using this exit before enter. I'm not sure whether I'm explaining this in a perfect way or not, but in the way how I understand this is just it's wait until the animation when another object is coming inside, the previous animation will wait until that object is completed. Okay, so that's why I'm using it. If you prefer to use it, you can use it. Okay, so animate presence, and then over here we don't need this fixed width, height and screen and everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete it, and I'm going to say height auto. Use the auto height. Other than that, I'm going to keep everything as it is, but the width I'm going to use is take the maximum width whatever you need, but the minimum width should always comes under 680 pixels. That means a minimum tablet size. I'm just going to take that. I'm not going to bring for the mobile screen. It's because it's not necessary. We can create a mobile application for this website to listen musics and everything. There no need of having a website for listening musics and everything. Everyone will prefer to use the uh, mobile app only. So that's the reason. So I'm just stopping it right over there. Okay, then what we have to do is we have to get back to our home.jsx. So inside the home.jsx, so what we have to do is, so the home screen should take the full width. So width should be, oh come on, width should be full screen, width full, and height should be auto, and it's going to be flex, and it's going to use the flex column. Then every item should be inside that should be in the center, and justify also center, and bg I'm going to use the primary color. Okay, so save the changes. So the output will looks like this. Okay, you can see that it's having some bg changes over here, and it's having some background color and everything. Okay, then what we have to do is we have to create a separate component for our header. Okay, so let's go back to our components folder, open that index.js. So right click and create a new file and name that file as header.jsx. Okay, and RAFCE, save the changes, and I'm going to use import it over here, export that file in the default name as header itself. From where? From /header. Save the changes. Okay, so now we can import that header over here, header slash. So now we can see that header over here. So our component is successfully rendered. So all we have to do, let's jump back to our header, and inside the header now we have to write all the necessary functionalities, whatever the things we needed. Okay, so let's bring that nice logo inside first. Okay, so it's better to use the proper tag name. So we are defining and creating the header only, so I'm going to use the header tag itself, header. Okay, so this will really help your website to boost by itself in the SEO, that means search engine optimizations. So use the proper tag whenever it's necessary. Okay, then inside this header, what are the things we are going to do? Inside this header, we need to create one logo and set a menu and our navigation menu and everything. So to do that, what we have to do, first let's fix that let's say class name. That class name should be the flex, of course, flex item center, and width, it should take the complete width, and padding in all the corners I'm going to use 4. Okay, commonly, but on the medium devices, in the medium devices, both top and Y, it should be 2, and in the medium devices, in the left and right, in the medium devices, the left and right, px, that's going to be 6. Okay, so these are the sizes. I'm going to use it for the medium devices and for the big screen. Big screen, this is for the normally in big screen. This is only for the medium screens. Okay, and now we have to bring that image. So if you go to your assets folder, I'm having this logo which is powered by Sony Music. So this is just for educational purpose. I'm using their logo, so don't use it for commercial purposes. Okay, so then what we have to do is, first we have to import our file. So import logo. Okay, so logo, it's not showing automatically, so from where it is, /assets/image/index. So we are importing that from there. Then inside here, I'm going to use img image tag, and that's a self-closing tag. So it's going to be our logo itself. Alternative, just type logo. So save the changes, and let's see. Logo, it's not coming. Why it's not coming? Index.js logo. what's the error we are getting? We are getting export default was not found in there. Source assets index, it's there only, but why we are not getting? It's quite confusing. I think, oh my bad, this index.js is not necessary. Just you have to give the images, refresh it. Still it's can't find, it can't find, it can't find. My bad, this should be inside as an object. There we go. So now we are getting that image. So that should be like this in this inside this curly brackets. Okay, so it's not a name, it's an object. We are getting an object, we are exporting over here, so we have to get it properly. We are getting it in this name, so we are not creating it. Okay, so we have to import it inside the curly brackets. So this should be a proper size. So let's fix that size issue. So the size is going to be, it's up to you, you can just create your own customized size and make sure that looks awesome. So I'm just going to keep it as width as 15. So width 16, that means nearly 64 pixels. And if you have a look at it, you can see that it looks like this. Okay, and whenever I'm getting inside this header section or not this navigated section, so when the user, sorry, what I'm trying to say, when the user clicks this, it should refresh the entire page and navigate to the home screen. To do that, what you have to do is, I'm going to use the nav link, which is provided by your React router DOM, which helps the user to navigate from one page to another. Okay, so from one route to another. Okay, so here inside this, you have to give to which page you have to route. So go to the slash, that means the home route. If you go back to your home.js, where is the, sorry, if you go back to your app.js over here, anything is coming from simply slash or after the slash, whatever it's come, it takes the user to the home screen. So that's what we are trying to do here. So let me keep that image over here, save the changes, and now you can see that that is a cursor, changes in the cursor as a pointer. If you click that, it will take the user to that same page, it will refresh it. Okay, now what we have to do is, then after this we have to bring the menu name, menu and everything. So for that we are going to create the UL tag. Inside this UL tag, I'm going to bring that li tag. So that's going to be a very big li. So what we are going to do, let's see. So UL tag, so this UL tag is going to have a class as flex, then flex, then items center, then justify in the center, and margin left, that's going to be, so because that should not come very close to your image, so that's the reason I'm using the margin left. Okay, then inside this li tag, I'm just going to have a name called home. Okay, and the class name, so class name, it's going to be a different, and inside this I'm going to have link to where the user needs to travel. For the time being, I'm just giving /home. Later I will create the pages and everything. Okay, then here inside this we are going to write as home. Okay, inside that we should write it as a home. So let's save the changes, and the class name, you like that class name is going to be mx-5 text -lg. Text, we are going to use it as an lg. So if you see here, you can see that it's having this option over here. Okay, so just like the same way, copy it, 2 3, and this is going to be musics, and this is going to be premium, and here also musics. Let's say premium, and last one is going to be contact us. Save the changes. So that's how the menu will looks like, but you can see that everything is looking in the same size. So when I click this, that's going to home. When I click this, music, everything is going perfectly, but there is no differentiation which is active, which is not active. So to do that, in the React router DOM, if you search for React router DOM nav link, so open their official website. Over there you can find active class name, which helps you to change your style on when the style is active or anything. So on active, what style you want to use, on not active, what style you want to use. So that's really helpful. So that's what we are going to use. So to how it's going to take, so in that we can see that it's having this object is active. So this will help you to monitor the active state or non-active state. Let's see, I'll show you the real example so that you will understand. Okay, so here let's go back to the nav link. Inside this nav link, so first what we have to do is we have to create two different objects, which is one for your active state and another one for your non-active state. Okay, so I'm going to use that functions, use that variable in a different time in a different component. So it's better to keep them in a common place and we can use it whenever we need it. So all the support functions which I'm going to create, it's going to be in the name called utils. So let's create a new folder called utils. Inside this utils folder, all the support files or support code, whatever I'm going to use it inside my web page, that's going to be inside the utils folder. So inside this utils folder, I'm going to create a new file called styles.js. So I'm going to write the styles.js inside this. Inside the styles, I'm going to use that active styles and non-active styles, two different options. I'm going to use them whenever I needed it. So I'm going to define a variable called export the const is active styles. If that is active styles, okay, so now we are going to export this. Inside this, I'm going to type a very big options and everything. So first it's going to be, so what the best option is, because we don't want to make any mistakes, right? So I'll just write that styles over here, then I'll copy it and paste it over there. So text LG, okay, then text heading color, then font semi bold, then on hover it should change as a text. Heading color, then duration 100, then transition all, then ease in. So this is the style we have to copy, cut it, and we have to paste it over here. Okay, what happened? View word wrap. Okay, this is the active styles, and just like in the same way, export const is not active styles. It's going to be, I'll just paste the same thing If it is not active, text is going to be large, and the normal text color is going to be text color, color, and font semi bold is not necessary, and hover is going to be heading color itself, duration, everything is going to be same. Save the changes. Now we have to import it over here inside our header.jsx so that we can use it inside our nav link when it's necessary. So let's import that one. Import is active styles, is not active styles. So these two packages. So here inside this class name, so it's going to be an object, okay, object, and it's going to have a callback function. Okay, inside that callback function, I'm going to have one more parameter that is called is active. This is that parameter which is coming from your nav link from the React router DOM itself. Okay, it's an object which is coming from that itself. So now inside this object, if that is active is true, okay, if that is active is true, then why this is happening? Oops, I closed this bracket itself. If is active, oh, come on, what is happening over here? This is, close it. Okay, it's an object is active. Oh, that's the reason. That's an object. So is active. So that is an object. We are extracting that object. Then we are using it. If is active, then use is active styles. If it is not active, use is not active styles. So what exactly happening here? We are calling a callback function. Inside that callback function, I'm extracting an object which is coming from is active is an object which is coming from your nav link provided by your React router DOM itself. Then I'm opening that function. If that function, that means if that object is true, then use this style. If that object is not true, then use this style. That's what we are saying it. So let's go back here. Now you can see that it looks a little bit bolder, and now you can see that it's not looking a little bit bolder. It's because that link is not active. So now what we have to do is, all you have to just copy this from here, copy it, just copy it here, copy, and then hold your alt key or command key, sorry, or options key, and then, and if you're using Windows, hold your alt key. If you're using Mac, hold your options key, then paste it over there so that you can paste it in all the 3 lines in the same way. Then press your escape key. That will work perfectly. Now you can see that it's changing the you can see that the active and non-active class perfectly. Okay, so now our menu is done successfully. So the next thing what we have to do is, we have to use okay, so the next important thing, it's just we have to bring that our user image over here. So that is a problem. So what problem? I'll explain what is the problem. It's because we have to share that user information throughout the entire component. Otherwise, what we have to do, we have to send that user information to every single component to the end of the child, to the end of every single child node. So we don't want to do that. So that's the reason we are going to use the context providers. Okay, so we are going to create our own context providers from the ground. Then we are going to share that information through the entire component. Before that, let's create a division, and that division is going to store our, inside this division we are going to keep on image, and we are going to keep the name. Okay, so flex item center, then margin left auto, then cursor pointer, then gap between those image and the text should be true, and this is going to be a relative position. Okay, so inside this, then what we are going to do, we are going to bring one image. Okay, and that image is going to come from your from where, from your user object. Okay, user object in the sense from here. Okay, so we have to get that information through API, so we haven't created that functionality. So let's fix this design, then we go back to that. Okay, so source and the class name is going to be, so currently it will display nothing because we haven't given anything for the source, so don't worry about it. So okay, so class name is going to be let's fix the minimum sizes with 12, which is I think 24, okay, 48 pixels with 12, and the minimum width, it's going to be, minimum width should be the same 44 pixel itself, and then object should be cover, then rounded full, okay, shadow edge. Okay, so these are the sizes. Object cover, it should cover the entire object, then it should, the rounded full means we don't need the rounded edges, that's why, sorry, we don't need the sharp edges, that's why we are using rounded full, and we are adding a little bit shadow. Okay, so, and after that, what we have to do, we have to bring one more division inside it, that is going to be the div, and that is going to have as a name as flex. Inside this division, I'm going to give two different paragraphs, flex column. Okay, so one paragraph, it's going to be that is going to be the user name, and another one is going to be the displayed as the premium member dot. After this, we are going to display a crown image, that is going to be far crown. So that crown is an React icon, so that is coming from React icon slash FA. The name of it is FA crown. FA crown, far crown. Then for this crown, we are going to use certain class names. So it's like the text size should be small and -ml -1, and text yellow color should be 500. Okay, save it, changes. Let's see how it looks. Look at that, this is how it looks. So here we are going to display that user image, it's not showing anything, and we are going to display the username premium member, and this crown should come over here. Okay, so let's fix that. So for this paragraph tag, I'm going to add a few styles. Okay, so class name, text color itself. Okay, then it's going to be a large text. Okay, on hover, whenever I'm hovering it, I'm going to display the text as a heading color itself. Okay, and the font should be semi-bold. And in the same way, for this, that is going to be flex, because we are having one more object inside it, flex and item center. Then gap between them is going to be 2, and the text is going to be extremely small. Then the color is going to be text gray 500, and the font is going to be in a normal look itself. This is how it looks. Okay, instead of this username, we are going to display that value and everything, which we are going to fetch it from our server, right? To do that, what we have to do is we have to create we install the package called Axios. Okay, so that will helps us to access the endpoints. So let's create a new folder called API. Inside this API, I'm going to create a new file called index.js. Okay, index.js. So here I'm going to import a package called import Axios. Why it's showing an issue? It's because not comma.js. Import Axios from where? From Axios itself. Okay, so I'm going to use an object called base URL. This is the URL which I'm going to use it widely inside our index.js, which is coming from our local host. That is nothing but our, currently it's our local host. Later I will provide the complete domain name over here and paste it. Okay, so this is our base URL. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy, export. I'm going to create a function to validate the user, and that is going to be an asynchronous function. And this function is going to carry an object called token, which is we are getting this token from where? Let me go to our app.js. Okay, so over here I'm getting this token. I will pass this token. Let me close this, and here I'll pass the token inside this function. Okay, and let's open the try and catch. Inside the try response, we'll get the response. Await. What we are going to do? We are going to call axios.get method. Why it is a get method? If you go to your server app, we are app in your auth.js, the method we are using over here is a get method, right? This is the method we are using. So let's go back here. That's the reason I'm using the get method, and I'm going to use the dynamic string literals. So I'm going to append the base URL first. Along with this base URL, we are going to copy this API/user login. This is nothing but which is coming from your, if you go to your server /API users, this is the route which is navigating the user to the user route to this specific file, right? So let me paste that one, paste it. Where did I paste? That should be inside here. Okay, API/user login. API/ anything that route coming through this URL /API/user, that will reroute the user to this auth file. So if you go to the auth file, we having the link called /login. So if anything coming to this user, it will go to auth, and if it sees this login /login, then this method will get triggered. So this is what happened. If anything is coming through this API URL, okay, along with this, how I'm sending the request. When I'm hitting this send button, it's taking one header along with it. That is the authorization with a bearer token. Okay, we are sending the token along with that request. So comma, open it. Okay, I'm sending the headers object. It's an object. Inside this, I'm sending this authorization. So copy this name and paste it over here, authorization. And that inside here, we are using this bearer. So copy that bearer. That is going to be bearer. Then one space. Along with this, I'm sending that token. Okay. So make sure that you are giving and one empty space over here. It's because we're having a space between this bearer and our token. So that's how we are splitting that term bearer and token. Okay. So it's the bearer is why we are using the bearer. So let's go and figure it out why. So why bearer means the bearer token is the predominant type of accessing the token used in the OAuth 2.80. A bearer token is opaque string, not intended to have any meaning to client using it. Nothing, just a term. Okay. So now it's fine. Okay, then what we have to do, we are sending the headers, we are sending a request that will return a response object from our server. Now what we have to do, we have to return it back to our main place. So return response dot data. From the response we'll get the data object, we are sending that data back. So where I need to call this object, that's a really important thing. So you have to call this inside your wherever you are calling that token object, you have to call it over that. Okay, so wherever we are calling it, in that case, is that's the case, then we have to use it inside our app.js. Where is our app.js? Go to your app.js inside your client folder, and this is the place where we are getting the user credential token, right? Inside this user credential token, instead of pasting the token, what I'm going to do, I'm going to validate that user, validate the user. So make sure that is imported from your API folder. Okay, validate that user. Then we're having the token right now in our hand. Send the token inside token. That will return a promise.then. We are getting the data from that. Then dispatch, not dispatch. Then what we are going to do, console.log that data. Save the changes. Okay, now if I go here and if I open the console, so we are getting an issue, failed to load the resource API/users/login. Why we are getting that issue? So if I am sending this request here, where it's saying authentication token expired. If I copy this and if I paste here, send it again, still it's showing. Why? So that means we have to log in again. So go to your application, local storage, clear this key, delete it. Okay, so now it's deleted. If I go back to refresh, /login, sign in, I'm using this. So it's signed in successfully. If I go to the console, now we are getting this. Copy. Now it's not showing that issue. What exactly happened here? Now we can see here, it's not allowing the user to get that value. I told you we are using the course package. So it's not allowing the user to access. It's showing as a cross origin error. So it's due to the course policy, it's not allowing the user to access our API. So what you have to do is go back to our, so in the previous session, I told you why I'm using that specific line over here, right? This line. So I have to enable this line /course. Okay, now I think it will work. Now we can see that we are getting that user information in the console. It's not showing any issue. Everything is working fine. We are getting that user object. Now all I have to do, what I have to do is I have to get this data and I have to send this to our user object. That's what we need to do. To do that, we have to create the context providers. So that's what we are going to do next. So let's do that thing right immediately. Okay, so we are going to create a new folder. So let's go back to our file. Now we are getting our API in our front end, so everything is working perfectly. Let's go back to our source folder, create a new folder called context. Inside this context folder, I'm going to create a new file that is going to be initial state. Initially, how our state is going to be. Then I'm going to create one more file called reducer.js, and I'm going to create one more file called state provider.js. The state provider is the main file. Initial state is just a variable which is going to create all the necessary variables and everything. So export const initial state, initial state. Okay, initial state is going to be inside this. Initially the user object is going to be null, nothing else. It's going to be null. Inside the reducer, okay, inside the reducer we are going to export the action type. Whenever any action we are providing, like fetching the user, that's going to be a user fetching action. So every single action we need to set an action type. So the action type is going to be set underscore user is that action name. The string name is going to be set user. Okay, then we are going to create the reducers. Okay, so const reducer is going to be, it's going to take that state along with what kind of action we are going to perform, and this an arrow 6 function. There is no space between the arrows over here. It's an arrow 6 function. Inside this arrow 6 function, let's console log the action. Every time whenever it's get triggered, what kind of action is triggering, we need to know. So console log that action. Okay, so I'm just going to use the switch case, and through that action I'm going to get what kind of type it is. So if that action is set user or set image or set song, something else, I can perform that kind of action type. Okay, if that case is equals to action type dot set user object, then perform that specific option. So if that is an action, then I'm going to return every single state as it is. I'm going to return the every single state as it is, no changes in that, except that only in the user state, get that updated user information. Okay, get that updated user information and change only that this user state. So apart from, so what we are exactly saying over here is, instead of changing the entire state of the entire component, that your entire website, so this will keeps all these states as it is, and it will update only that specific state. Okay, so this will maintain and reduce the timing and everything. Okay, then now this case is completed. Now what we have to do is, the case is completed, then we don't need to case 1 2. Okay, so we have to create one default case. After this we have to provide one default case also. By default return the state itself. None of the actions are happening, just return the state itself, save the changes. Okay, then by default we have to export default reducer, because we need to use this reducer outside this block. So that's the reason we are exporting this reducer, save the changes. Then go back to the state provider. This is the place where we are creating our own context. Okay, so import React. Okay, along with the React we are going to create few hooks. We are going to use the few hooks. First hook is going to be create context, and use context and use reducers. So these are the things we are going to use, and I'm going to create my own context that is going to be state context variable. This can be anything, you can keep it as it is. So create context. Okay, so now we created a context in the name of state context. Then we are exporting the state provider. Export const state provider That's a variable which we are creating. I'm just keeping it in the same name as it is our file name, state provider. And that's going to be an arrow6 function. And that's going to take certain variables as an object. Okay, not a parameter value as an object. So that is going to be the reducer object. Then initial state. So it's better to use the same name, so we'll know, you will not get confused. Initial state, paste it. Reducer, paste it. And the children. Okay, these are the three different objects we are going to use. Okay, and this is not going to be a function, it's going to be a component rendering. So inside this, I'm going to render our state context. So state context dot provider, and inside here I'm going to render that children component, whatever the components which is coming under this under this main app. Everything should be rendered inside the state provider. So that's why we can use that entire states inside all the child node, or not all the child nodes of our main app. Okay, state provider. And what is the value it's going to use? This value it's going to use reducer of the reducer which we created, and the initial state object which we have. It's going to use this two different objects. So where we have to use these two things, so you have to use these two different options inside your our home. Where is our home? Just a moment. Where did I use that one? Oh God. I forgot. Just give me a moment. Let me search it out. I used it somewhere, not in app, or where did I use? Yes, index.js. I forgot it. In my bad. Sorry. So open your index.js. Go back to the index.js. This is the place where we are rendering our app, right? So this should be wrapped inside our state provider. State provider, which is coming from context state provider, which is coming from this folder, and wrap your app inside this, save changes. And this state provider is going to have the initial state value, and that is going to be our initial state. And it's also having the reducer object also, property also, that component having the reducer prop, and that we are going to supply the reducer which we having over here. Save changes. So now if you go here, so far it looks like nothing happened. So please install this extension called components. So you can install it from Chrome extension itself. Click that components. You can see in that component, this is the routes, right? And here you can see our context provider, state provider, context provider over here. So this is a state provider. You can see our app. Children is going to be our main app, and the initial state is going to be your user, and the reducer is going to be our function. Currently nothing. If we click that value, you can see that our user object is null, and so far nothing is there, right? So far nothing is there. And what we have to do is, now we have to Yeah, now all we have to do is to get back to our app.js. We have to get back to our app.js in our client folder. So open your app.js. Okay, so I'm going to use this. Okay, I'm going to use this custom state value which we created. So we created the custom state called state provider. So here in the state provider, okay, in the state provider we are going to create a custom state, okay, and we are going to export it. So after this, export const use state value. That's the custom state which I'm creating, and I'm going to export the context which we created, state context. Okay, this is the custom hook which we created, and we are going to use it inside our own files. Okay, so let me close this, we don't need it anymore, and let's go back to here. And here, instead of this console.log.token, what we are going to do is we are going to dispatch that method. Okay, we are going to, just a moment, where this where did I use? Come on, where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Okay, so now what we have to do is we are going to use that custom value. So sorry, it took me a long time to open my file in my another monitor. Okay, so here now what we are going to do is I need to import two different, the value which we created. Okay, we need to import that we have to import that custom hook which we created. So sorry, not import, that import should be done over here. Import, okay, use state value coming from our state provider. Okay, then after this I have to create the state. So const state object, and initially I'm going to get that user state, and along with that I'm going to use the dispatch as a method name, dispatch. Okay, we are creating a state, nothing, we are just creating the state which our custom hook. Use state value. Use state value is our custom hook that's taking an object as a state along with the function. Okay, now what we are going to do is here validating. This is the place where we are validating and we are getting the data. I'm going to save this data in our context provider, right? This is the place where we are going to save that context inside the context provider. So all you have to do is just what you need to do is once it's done, you have to call that dispatch method. Inside this dispatch method, I'm going to call an object as a type. The action type which is coming from your state provider, action type is going to be set user, and I'm going to set the object user, and that is going to be the data which I'm receiving from that. Okay, so save the changes. Now if you go back here and if you look at the values, if you go to the user object, you can see that we're having the one more user object inside, and you can see that we are getting that values, everything over here perfectly. So now the values are stored inside our context provider, and now you can use this value whenever you needed it. Okay, so if the user is not there, we are setting the local storage to false. As the same way, what you have to do, you have to dispatch again, dispatch, and type is going to be action type dot set user, comma, user object is going to be null again. Okay, this is what you have to set. So now in the app.js is done, you have to do the same thing inside your login.js, because that's the place where the user is getting logged in. So you have to do the same thing inside your login page also. So to do that, what you have to do, all you have to go back to the login.jsx, open your login.jsx, and go back to the place where you are getting logged in. Inside the components, login.jsx, this is the place where we are getting logged in, and this is the place where you are getting the token. Inside here, I'm going to import that use state value, and I'm going to create a state const as an object user, and the method called dispatch, and I'm going to use our custom hook use state value, and inside this is the place you have to use that dispatch method and object, and type is going to be action type dot set user, user is going to be we are getting the token. Oh, my bad. This is the place you are not supposed to use the dispatch here, because here we are just getting the token, we not yet validate them, so we have to get that validation. So before that validation, what you have to do is we have to set the authentication as true. Yeah, already here it's setted, so that's fine. So here then what we have to do, we have to validate user from the API. I'm sending the token inside, then that will return a promise, and through that only we are getting that data, and it's a callback function. Inside this only now we have to use the dispatch method, and that is going to have an object called type, and that is going to specify which kind of action it is. Dot action type is going to be set user, and now we having the user object. In the user state we are setting the data which we received. Save the changes. So this is done, and in any cases if your user is not get any value or anything, we just need to copy this dispatch, copy it, and right after this we have to set the user object as null. Okay, save the changes. So now if the user logged in successfully, you will get the data, and still we're having the data over here, so it's running perfectly, so no issues with that. Now all we have to do is I have to bring that user information in my header.js. So in the header.jsx, so this is the place where I'm displaying that username alone. So go to your header.js and import use state value, and get that hook const, create that user state user command dispatch. We are not going to use the dispatch, but anyway you have to create it, use state value, and now I can use that user object inside here. So what is the value we are getting? We are getting the user. Inside the user we are having one more user. Inside that user only we are having the data. So what you have to do, in the username, open the dynamic string user object question mark dot user, because user is the state, and we are getting one more user object over here, and inside the user only you are having that all the variables and everything. So now what I need to do, I need to display the name over here, question mark dot name. Save the changes. So that should display the name over here. You can see that we are getting the name over there. Just like the same way we have to bring the images of the user. What is the image over here? Open the dynamic string user object dot user dot image URL, because that's the variable we're having over here, image URL. So save the changes, and still we are not getting the image. Why? Are we making any mistake? Right click, inspect. This is the division, and this, okay, it's not having any height. That's the reason. So what is the problem? Then it should be height. Well, not that. This, say the changes. Now we are getting this image. So whenever you're using the Gmail authentication, so it might happen, this issue might happen. So at that time, what I will usually, I just copy this link, I'll paste it, open it, and you can see that it's having that image. Now if you just refresh it, you will get that image. So this is happening, it's because it's a referrer policy. Okay, so this is happening, it's because of the referrer policy. To avoid this issue, what you can do is you can use the referrer policy. How we can use it, like for instance, after this alt tag, you have that referrer policy. So make it as no referrer. Okay, so that will solve that issue. Okay, now we can see that we're having that what is that options, we're having the username and everything, which is coming through our authenticated token, right? So it's working perfectly. So now what we have to do, we have to bring that sign out functionality. So that I'm going to do just by using, this is that division, right? Inside this division, I'm going to create one more division there. Okay, and that division is going to be absolute division, right? Class name is going to be absolute, and it's going to be top of everything, z index, and from the top it's going to be 12, and from the right side it's going to be 0. Then width is going to be, the box size is going to be 275, and gap between them is going to be 4, and the color it's going to be background color, it's going to be the card. Okay, and then after this, what else? BG card, and then shadow LG. Okay, then rounded LG, then backdrop blur, it's going to be SM, and flex call. Save the changes, and nothing else. Absolute, why it's not showing anything? We are not getting anything else. We are getting one thing over there here, but why it's not? Okay, let's add some padding before. Save changes, and look at that. Now we are getting that box over here, padding 4. Okay, now you can see that it's having some padding, some box over here, right? Okay, and now what we have to do is, inside this division box, okay, I'm going to bring two different options. User need to navigate to his own account, right? So I'm going to have a nav link, and that nav link is going to take the user to his own account. That is called user profile. This is a link we haven't create this route. Okay, so no worries. So then the paragraph tag, and the paragraph tag is going to have a class name, and that is going to be text, is going to be base size, nothing big, text. Then the text color is going to be the text color itself, which we custom created color, and the font hover, it's going to be font semi bold, and the duration is going to be not 175, 150, and transition is going to be all, transition all, and ease in out. Okay, and the profile, it's going to be the profile, the name itself, it's going to be profile. Let's change the view, like word wrap so that you can see it clearly. Profile, save the changes, and after this, I'm going to add one more paragraph tag. So let me copy this, copy, paste it, and that is going to be my favorites, and after this I'm going to create one line. That's a HR tag. Okay, and after that I'm going to create one more paragraph that is going to be the sign out. Save the changes, and this is how it looks. But that's not looking good, right? Gap between them, it's not working. See, the gap is not working. Gap functionality is not working. I don't know why. Gap. That is flex only. So flex column, but I don't know why the gap property is not taking. It's quite confusing. My bad. This should be outside of this nav link. That's the reason the gap is not taken. Okay, now it's working perfectly. Okay, so this is unnecessary gap. Save the changes. This is also save the changes. Okay, so actually I pasted this paragraph tag everything inside this nav link itself, so that's the reason it's not showing the gap. Now we need to have one padding also over there, so padding 2. Now we have the padding effects and everything. I think we can reduce the gap a little bit, so gap 2, and increase the padding as 3. So this is looking awesome, right? You can see that now it's looking awesome. Now on clicking this sign out button, the user needs to be signed out and he needs to be navigated to the login screen, right? So to do that, what we are going to do is I'm going to have an on click event. Inside this on click event, I'm going to call a function called logout, and I'm going to create that function over here. Const logout is going to be an arrow 6 function. Inside this const, we need to get our Firebase auth equals get app of our app, which is coming from our Firebase app itself, Firebase app, Firebase config. Okay, now we have the Firebase auth. So Firebase auth dot sign out. Something is not adding up. We are not getting the app. We need to get the auth. Get auth. That's the reason. So this is not needed. Okay. Get the auth, then supply our app information inside. So that will provide the method called sign out method. Once it's signed out successfully, that will return a promise, and we have to catch that promise. So we are not going to get any data from inside it. All I am going to say window.local storage set item. I'm going to get the storage value called auth, and I'm going to set that value as false. Okay, in case if there is any issue, catch that issue and get that error. just console dot log that error. Okay, once everything is successfully done, then navigate that user. We have to navigate that user. So what I'm going to do, going to use the use navigate method. Through that use navigate method, we need to create const navigate object. We need to create an instance for use navigate hook. Then we need to navigate that user, navigate that user to the slash login screen itself, and replace that object. Save the change. Now let's make sure whether it is working perfectly or not. We are getting an else error. What is that problem? Oh, my bad. This is importing the app from server.firebase config. That's a problem. So import control slash. We're having two different app. So make sure that is coming from your config folder from your client file. So I imported the wrong file. That's why it's showing the issue. Now it's not showing that issue. Now if I click it, it will log out successfully and it's rerouted to the login screen. Now if I click this, and now I'm going to use my another Gmail account, and look at that. Now if you go and check your collection, I should have two different IDs, one of two. Why it's showing one of two? Here, look at that. I'm having two different IDs because I just used my two different emails. So the email account what we created is successfully triggered and it's working fine. But still, this one is keep on showing. I don't want this to display every time. So to solve that issue, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import one class, import one thing that is called import motion from framework motion, and I'm going to wrap this division into as a motion division. Okay, enter. And this motion object is going to have what I'm going to do is the initial state. Initially the opacity of that particular division is going to be 0, and y is going to be come from 50 pixels, and animate that opacity to 1, and y is going to be 0. Then on exit, the same opacity is going to be 0, y is going to be 50 again. Okay, now we can see that it's coming from the bottom to top. Okay, when it's need to be triggered, okay, I'm going to create a state const, wait a second, okay, const, not const, we can say use state snippet. So here I'm going to say is menu. Initially it's going to be false. So where is the division? This is that division, right? So this division needs to be displayed only if is menu, then only we have to render that division. That means if that state is true, use state is not defined. Where is that use state? Here we go. Save the changes. Now you will not get that menu. It's because that state is not true. So when I need to change that true, when I enter my mouse inside this division, that's need to change true. When I move out, that's need to change false. To do that what you have to do is all I have to trigger an event for this very specific division, for that parent division. When I move my mouse inside that division, on mouse enter, we are calling a callback function that is going to set is menu as directly true. on mouse leave, I'm going to call a callback function. That function is going to say set is menu as false, save the changes. Now let's see whether it is working fine or not. When I move it inside, you can see that it's coming. When I move out, it's going out. Move out, going out. Move out, going out. Look at that. How cool it is, right? It's working absolutely fine. So let's increase a little bit space from the top. Instead of top 12, I'm just going to make it a 16. So make sure yourself a little bit look nicer, so that it looks awesome. So I'll keep it 14 itself. Okay, so now it's looking awesome, right? So the animation is working perfectly. When I click, come on, when I, why it's happening? Okay, I think it's because of the division length. Yeah, it's because of the division length itself. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to sign out. Now it's signed out. The login screen is not looking good. To do that, I'll go back. I'll go to the login screen, login.jsx. Okay, inside the login.jsx, we have to import a video. So I think we already have our assets folder. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to import that video. Import. I think we don't need to import that video. Wait a moment. Let me check. Import login. What is it? From /assets/video. Login background. Yes, that's the object we are having inside our. So where is our division? Right, this is the place that division is getting displayed. Right, after this, I'm going to display that video tag. Video source is going to be our login pg, and I'm going to close this and I make it a self-closing tag. And after this, type is going to be video/mp4, then autoplay, then muted, then loop, then class name that is going to use the complete width and the complete height, and the object should be cover. Save changes. Then your login screen will looks like this. So now if I click this, it will open it, and if I choose any ID, it will log in, and that will display the user information, and you can sign out successfully from here. So it's coming perfectly, and if I click signed out, that is taking the user back to the login screen. So this is what we so far done. So I hope you enjoyed this today's session, and in the next class we are going to that means in the next live session we are going to build something new. So stay tuned, and if you're having any issues during while you're watching these live sessions or anything, just leave the comment below. I will help you out. So I'll see you all in the next session. Bye bye, take care.